Just want to say that. Okay, we have the honor tonight to have Rabbi Dovid Dubov, Shliach in Princeton, New Jersey, which is actually Rabbi Sefer on the Rebbe's father, Peter, Yokid, Levi Yitzhak. There's a special Chasuna as well that was put along the Rebbe's father's Peter that will be given towards the end of the program. There's actually a podcast as well that he does on a weekly basis. So every Gishna Achayis, there's something to give over the Mishpacha by the Shabbos table. Every week something on the Pasha of the week. And it's been going on Baruch Hashem for about a year now. And before that as well. And it's on egonterror.org. You'll see the podcast if you want to join the podcast or the WhatsApp group. I'd like to thank, actually, Sally Schneer, if you'd like to come up and mention about the sponsor tonight. And thank you for coming. It's a very special evening for the father.
Wow. So first I want to thank all of you for coming and taking part in this event. Very special for me and all the organizers that come and make this event meaningful. I want to take a moment and thank Rabbi Rebbe, whose vision it is to have this event tonight and really push for it. So they should mention with all his Kodesh. And also to thank Shmari Gurari and Sona Flank for their involvement in this program. And also want to thank Rabbi Levi Egghouse and his wife for sponsoring the shiurim this week in honor of their son Abshar Nishnak Mendel and the exclusive of his father, a exclusive of the Rebbe's father, of the Yitzchak of the Rabbi Schneer, be for him and his family and for all of us in all of Israel. To see the Rebbe together with the Rebbe's father.
Thank you. So first, I want to start off as I always do. Such a beautiful occasion. I'm not sure everyone knows this, but I have the Ksaviyat here. I was going to explain in this new sefer that just came out, the Rebbe's Ksaviyat. And this is what I heard the story was, but it came out then. When it was the 40th yahrzeit in the year Tafshin Dalet Mem, so that year it came out on Shabbos. Chof was Shabbos that year. The story goes that the Rebbe came to his room right after Tisha B'Av, the fast, and what we're told that he just had a cup of tea, and right away he took a piece of paper and he wrote these words. You never find these words anywhere. It just shows you how much it meant for the Rebbe that we study his father's teachings. And this is what he wrote. this piece of paper here, I have to see it. I have a small little note. The Rebbe wrote these words. He says, this coming Shabbos is to be my father's 40th yahrzeit. Then he writes these phenomenal words. For Alai and on me, the obligation, my merit, Godel, the great one, Lehatzia, to bring forth and to Ulabakesh and to request, Vichulu, etc. And he underlines, Vichulu, which means as much as many more words I'm going to say, I'll never really be able to really express my deep feeling about this. But what? Lil boy, his father's piterosek, you should learn in the in the time of the Espados from his Torah, you should give stocker for his neshama. Now, so the Rebbe emphasizes clearly that we should learn in the setting of his fathers, and therefore it's very, very important that every one of us still L'chaim together, fulfill the Rebbe's wish. If Rebbe just didn't want it to be like a cold shear or learning, you want it to be in the atmosphere of a L'chaim. So I want to wish everyone a wonderful L'chaim. It's known that we started to wish everyone a ksibach simatova, shon tova masukah, and everyone have a wonderful L'chaim. Always blessed with a good year. L'chaim. I want to start off. I see my dear friend over here. I have regards from him. My dear friend, Rabbi Chasuna Baumgarten. So just this morning, his cousin in Australia, Rabbi Tzvi. So this morning, can you imagine they asked me to give a little talk. By me, it was 7 o'clock in the morning, but then it was Chof Thursday night, already 9 o'clock at night. And they were on lockdown. So we had a beautiful Zoom, a beautiful oil that came. So I want to share with you what I told them concerning the lockdown. I said, one of the letters that the Rebbe's father writes to the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah, he explains the bracha of the Shana Tov and the Sukkah. Have a good and sweet year. The Rebbe's father asks, it sounds like a redundant and double expression. Once you say good, it's sweet, sweet is good. What's the difference between that? What's the double expression? The Shana Tov, good year, and also the Sukkah. Rebbe's father explains something very, very beautiful. That we all believe that everything Hashem does is for the good. But not always can we, human beings, see the goodness of many, many sometimes challenges. And sometimes we see things that are not 100% good, even though we know that from heaven nothing comes bad, everything is good. And this is the bracha that we ask Hashem. The Shana Tov will give us a good year, but we don't want those hidden goods. We want to have Misukkah, a year full of sweetness. Even by us it's sweet. Of course we know everything is good. But we want to have down here in this world, it has to be Misukkah, sweet. So I want to share with you something very, very nice. And I'm going to tell you a mind-boggling story that happened with me. I want to start this off. And just recently, I'm telling the story. Today came out a very special book, Sefer, which I'm going to talk in a few minutes. But this is a continuation of a series, which that series already 5 volumes came out. I want to explain you what the series is. And just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, this Friday is going to be 2 weeks, we lost a giant, Rabbi Khan, I want to tell you something very special, what happened with me and him at the oil. Because of him, I want to tell you this project that I'm working on, that's how it happened. So, I'll tell you exactly, it's a long story, but in short. Approximately when it was the 60th, this year the 77th yard sign for the Rebbe, 17 years ago, when it was the 60th anniversary, in Tofshin Samach Dalet, then it dawned on me this idea that, if you look around the world, you will see there were many, many Gedolis world, many great, great sages. And not all of them wrote Pirushim, wrote explanations of Chumash. People, like if you have an explanation of Chumash, because people like learn Pasha Shavua, they have some nice board on the Pasha, people live with it. So I'm going to give you an example. You could go today, you could go to the bookstore, you could find the book called Rabbi Kiva Ega Lapera. Rabbi Kiva Ega did not write. He wrote on Shas, he wrote on Shas Chuvas, he wrote on questions and answers, responsa, but he didn't write on the parshas of Chumash. A guy came, he went through all his books, and automatically he saw he has such beautiful, nice things, explanations in the Posik, the Medrash, the Rashi, and he put it all together and made a book. So today you can get a book called, and many people use it. Another example, the Raga Trubba. The Raga Trubba Goyer, Joseph Rosen, who passed away in 1935, and Genius of a Genius. He did not write on Chumash. Came a man, Rabbi Nachman Kasher, and he went through his books, and he organized things, but he has nice, beautiful explanations on Sukkim, on Chumash. And the Rebbe brings it down in the Kundas Zichus. It's called Shoftas Panei Chalatoni. You can buy it this one. So it dawned on me, why can't we do the same thing for Levi? He also didn't write, maybe he did, but we don't have it, got lost. Who knows what happened to all those thousands of pages the Rebbe said that his father wrote, and we don't know where it is today. So I started to write to the Rebbe oil. I had this idea in honor of your father to start taking out pieces from what he wrote. And he many times has such a beautiful shot. I'm going to share with you a couple of them tonight on Chumash, Rashi, on the Medrash. I want to tell you what happened. A couple of people asked me. I spoke to Rosh Hashivas, I spoke to Rabbi Shluchim. So they said, give us a sample. You have a good idea, but we want to see something. So it took me a time to put it together. Approximately a year and a half later, when it was the 104th year of the Rebbe's birthday, now we're holding the year Tafshin Samavov. Pesach, Yudal Tisna, I gave out a pamphlet. It's not it, I'm just giving you a pamphlet. Had 104 things there, easy things. I want to show people that you think it's all Kabbalah. Kabbalah is not true. It's so beautiful, such beautiful, nice explanations on Chumash. I sent it out, and so many people, they loved it. I got unbelievable feedback. Then listen to every single email, every single text I got. I kept a duchlek, I kept a diary, and now let me tell you what happened. That Dubov now, going back 15 years ago exactly. Chof Shin Sama. A story that happened tomorrow, 15 years ago, back by the oil. I went to the oil, and this is what I wrote to the Rebbe. I wrote to the Rebbe like this, concerning the project organized with your father's Hiroshim al Torah. So first I said, this is all in regards to the feedback. And then I said that Rebbe, we have permission from cause. We have people who want to give money for it. We think in our mind we can do it. But such a thing, we feel a little bit, maybe we're doing something that's not, we don't know, before Gimel Thomas, but sometimes we never do such a thing without his full Hastoma Bracha. His full, he gives us the green light. He wants it, he gives us the blessing. So I asked the Rebbe, can you give me a simon? Can you give me a sign that this is something that we want? This is exactly what I wrote. I said, because we feel uncomfortable to go ahead. Perhaps I can tell you many stories of people who wrote things to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told, you have good ideas, but it's not practical or it's not for you, So, of course, many times has good ideas, but not always you have to know if the Rebbe accepts it. Especially when we're talking about something for the coverage from his father. And this is, I'll tell you what happens. Came out from the oil. So I go to Rebbe Mushka, then I went to Rebbe Chasuna. I was walking back. Who do I meet? Walking in that path. We have the two poles over there, the cement beams, right by the end of the shvil, the pathway. Who was there walking to go into the oil was Rabbi. And he's holding a piece of paper in his hand. I'm holding that was a bike. I'm holding the kutus in my hand. I was going back. He stops me. So I shook my head. I looked at him. I know, but the guy goes to the oil. Don't talk to him. At the time, his mind is in his body. He rose his opinion. And he stops me. And he asks me these words. I thought you Yiddish now, I'll translate. He asks me, "Du hast das gemacht? Did you make this?" So I said, I worked on. That's what I asked. So he tells me these words. Ich habe es gesehen, sie sehr gut, so sind sie Mamschach sein, und ich werde helfen. Komm mal rein zu mir, ich kann stehen jetzt, mit nach rechts. He walks with. And which he says, I saw it, it's very good, you should continue, I'm going to help you. Come in to me, I can't talk now, and we'll talk. I was so bewildered. I didn't tell him it. I said, 2 minutes ago, I asked them, give me a sign that you want this. I didn't say a word. He continued. I went, I called him up 2 weeks ago, gave me a time, we went in, we spoke for 4 hours, one Friday from 11 to 3. He closed his office, he didn't take no phone calls, and he focused, he told me exactly what to do. So because of him, I want to tell you, he gave me this. I want to tell you, his student, Rabbi Shapiro from Miami, told me, he said, Rabbi is a genius of a genius. if you know his personality, not that he's a bad person, but he never gives compliments to people. That's not his style. He says, you should give me such a compliment. That's very rare. He says, that's unbelievable. He said, it's an unbelievable sign that the Rebbe wants to play to go ahead. So this is how it started. So I'll just mention his schus is still part of his shloshim, his special neshama, Shabbat Aliyah, because of him, so already 5 volumes came out already. We did from Pashas Bereshis to Pashas Mishpatim. We're in the midst of working now on the 6th volume from Pashas Truma to Pashas Pekudei, which I hope Be'ezer Hashem, God's help, come out in the near future. Time will come. Now, I want to share with you something very special. This book came out today. Literally, I just got it. And tomorrow morning it's going to the oil. It's already. I got just 2 volumes came out print just in time for Chof. One went to Alma Ata, and the other one's here. It's it's on the ship now, coming to Kahos very shortly. But while I was working, so I'll just tell you a little bit about the history. It's a beautiful thing. We all know the Rebbe left Russia the end of 1927, right after Sukkot, Stopper Speichas. That last Sukkot, you should know, the Rebbe was not by the Fidik Rebbe, even though he was such a close to the Fidik Rebbe. He went home to be with his father. The last Sukkot Speichas, they were together. Stopper Speichas. A day or two after Yom Tov, he left. Now, listen to this. If you read the history, we were hoping, and everyone was hoping at that time, the Rebbe is going to get permission. Rebbe's parents, Rebbe Yitzchak, and Rebbe Chasuna will get permission from the Russian government to go to the Chasuna poll. That's why the Chasuna stalled. They waited and waited and waited till finally they did not get permission. That's why they set the Chasuna for Yudalat Kislev, the 14th of Kislev, Stopper Speichas, approximately a little over a year and a month or 2 after they left Russia. Now, during that time, our Rebbe received from his father approximately 15 letters. He sent him a letter for Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, and then there was a cluster of letters that he received over the weeks of his chasna. And the style of the Rebbe's father was he would start off with a bracha, then right away he would go into something very deep in learning, and then the last few lines of the letter would be just a continuation of the bracha. But the bulk and the entire letter, the majority of it, I think 99% literally, would be all in Yonim of Torah. And it's not too easy to learn it. You have to really, really get the heart of it, the toil to truly understand what the style of writing. And there were many, many Hasidim, you should know, who always, over the years, wanted to learn it. Most people would just read all the easy stuff, all the brachas, but they would never get to the depth. And this took also like a year and a half, 2. Kohos gave it the permission, and we decided that we're going to explain every single word, every line, what he wrote. And she'll give you beautiful examples. So you have to understand that, so that's why today literally came out a new book. It's called Yalkut Rebbe Yitzchak, Michtovei HaChasna, the letters of the period of the wedding. Higher Sefer, and it's, I can tell you, the letters, it's mind-boggling. And so I want to share with you about 2 letters I'm going to focus tonight on. And something that we should all, you see what kind of giant of a person that Rebbe Yitzchak was. Before I go further, always back to bring you say a story. in honor of my dear friends. Rabbi, I'll share with them another thing that his uncle, we lost also a year ago, approximately Pesach time, by Groner, the devoted his 40 years for the Rebbe, even more. So he told me an incredible thing. He told me like this: that if you go to the Rebbe's room, on the right side of the Rebbe's room, there's a table there. It's covered. You don't see, but that table, you ever notice? That table was made by the Rebbe. That is a special table there on the side in the Rebbe's room. It's round. They have a cover over it. That's a table that was made by the Rebbe Maharash. So long story, Rebbe Groner told me, I'm going to go into it now. How even the Rebbe got it, told me. I'll tell you what happened. I once called Rebbe Groner and I asked him, I have a couple of questions. He knew every time out of respect, every time a book came out, I went to his house and I gave him a book. I said, I'm going to give you a gift. He was so, I want to give him the proper respect. So then I called him up once and I said, I have a couple of questions about it. Would you give me some time? He was so nice. He said, sure, come over. It was Wednesday night. I'll tell you, he was so nice to me. I sat with him 2 hours, just me and him. He brought out some mashke, his wife brought out some kichlach, and we were sitting up our brain. He was telling me incredible stories. So he told me, so a lot of things here. I asked him about when the books first came from the Rebbe's father to the Rebbe, which I'll soon tell you the details about. I asked him if he remembers how it started, what happened. So he told me a few interesting things. The only thing he told me was, which was really, really astonishing, he told me that the Rebbe, since this table was made by the Rebbe Maharash, the Rebbe never ever let anything on that table. He did not leave. There was once a secretary on the table, but we just couldn't put just papers or this paper. That table, the Rebbe held it, it's a holy table. The Rebbe Rash made it with his own hands. But then he said he remembers clearly, 1960, when the Rebbe's father's books, so I'll tell you the details, arrived. The Rebbe was so happy. It arrived from Russia, went to Israel, the whole story. When those books came to New York, when he told me something, he brought it in, the Rebbe told him, Legas HaMudish. And the Rebbe pointed to the Rebbe Maharash. He said the only thing that was, he remembered so clearly, he said he was so surprised, but the Rebbe said, Taten Svarim, the Rebbe pointed, put on the Rebbe Maharash's table, said he never ever used, like let's say there was extra Svarim on around, we have to put somewhere, there was no such thing. He said that table we knew, that's untouchable. You don't touch that table that was Kodesh. But he said he remembers clearly, this way when I met him. Anyways, so I want to share with you, once I mentioned that, what happened. When the Rebbe's father was sent to Kazakhstan in 1939, after he was approximately 9-10 months in jail, so the Rebbe's mother, Rebbe Simchana, she had such devotion, she learned so much from her. She had such a devotion for her husband, even though she was not exiled, she chose with her own choice to join her husband and to help him in Chile. She could have stayed in the activist club, but she knew that her husband is suffering in Chile, somewhere in Siberia. She went there, and she brought him some Sforim. Which Sforim? She brought him a Tanya. She brought him a Zohar. I have that Zohar in my house. I got from my father, which was printed in the year Chof Shem Ches. That's the year that was printed. And the Rebbe, and then a small little Mishnayos. Very, very few Sforim. And then we all know on the margins of the pages of the Zohar, he wrote his commentary. And so I have it in my house. It's unbelievable that everything is divine providence. It's just interesting that the olden days they used to use out as much as possible paper. Paper was expensive, so they would print as much as possible, top to bottom. This print from the Zohar Chof Shem Ches is so interesting that the margins on the bottom is pretty large. It goes like 2/3 of the page, or a nice amount of empty space. And the Rebbe's father used those spaces and he wrote all over. I want to tell you something mind-boggling. You can look it up. I'm just telling you my own things. The Rebbe said by bringing Tovshin mem vol tishtin. Yeah, bro. Yeah, you know what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said like this. We all know that the Rebbe's mother, you can learn so much about this, and she came to Chile, and she knew what's going to give her husband inner peace. He didn't have nothing. They had no minion. They lived in such, physically, it was like mind-boggling. But what she knew, her husband would have tremendous simcha, would give inner joy. It would uplift the spirits if he would be able to express his chidushim in writing. And that's why she went out and she made ink. The Rebbe said by her bringing this phenomenal thing. Look it up. Look, we got the page. Toshim and Bo, Tisha. The Rebbe said these words. You know why my mother went out and made ink? He said, in addition to all of her dikes, all of her, she had to worry about her husband, the physical condition. The Rebbe said something. The Rebbe said something phenomenal. The Rebbe said, my mother wanted to bring Mashiach to the world. And she knew that Mashiach is going to come only through a Porta Samayona's Mutter. And her husband's Torah, which is part of a Porta Samayona's, she had Mesiras Nefesh to make ink in order for that to be written down. But she wanted to help us, our generation, to bring Mashiach. This is what the Rebbe said about the The Rebbe said, the noise of alle andere Tigers, this is what she focused on. Huh? Oh. The main course will be served after my. I'm going so much in the story, so I don't want to lose the point. We have to get to a nice board. So before we get to I'm sure you have two interesting letters. How are you? So I want to tell you something. I'm going to focus on two interesting letters, mind-boggling. Right before the Rebbe's Chasuna, on both Kislev, yeah, the 6th day of Kislev, his wedding was 8 days later. There's a letter written from Chasuna to Poland. And the date is the 6th of Kislev. And that letter, I want to tell you, is so unique that you see that's the style of the Rebbe. What does Rebbe's father write there? He writes them like this. Your wedding, he takes 5, 6 things together, and then he shows, there's a connection between all of them. And he writes them like this. Number 1, you're getting married, a wedding. Number 2, it's on a Tuesday. Number 3, it's also the third month of the year, Kislev. Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev. We have a total 3 of the week, 3 of the month. And then he says, which day is it? 14th day. And he starts going one by one, and he shows how all these details have one point. And then I want to just finish up with this nice thing. So like this. Your proof was Parshas Vayetze. Rebbe was called up for the Aliyah, Parshas Vayetze. So he says, Rebbe's father writes to him, I found 5 Ramazim hints to your Chasuna in Parshas Vayetze. Number 1, he says, there's a wedding in Parshas Vayetze. Who got married? Huh? Yaakov. Yaakov got married to Rachel. Yaakov was number what? Number 3, you're getting married on a Tuesday. Also number 3. Are you getting married in the 3rd month? So there's a connection, 3, and he connects the 2. And then it says like this. The Medrash says there's 2 types of marriages. One type of marriage is where the Kala has to travel to the Chasuna. Like we see by Rivka, sometimes the Chasuna travels to the Kala. Like we see by Yaakov, and he left his father's house, he went down to Torah. By you, just similar to Yaakov, you left your father's house, and you went down to the place where the Kala lived to get married. There's another connection. And then he says like this. How many years did Yaakov work for his wife? 7 and 7. 7 for Leah and 7 for Rachel. He even said, Alba Esther Shonim, Abba Ticha. He told his father, 14 years I worked for you. So we see the number 14 in Ashray 18, get married in the age of 14. And then he says the last thing, he says, like it's another interesting thing he says. Yaakov, we know that Yaakov got married in Torah, but his parents were not by the wedding. Yitzchak and Rivka stayed in Eretz Yisrael, they were not by the wedding. He said the same thing is what you do. He said, don't feel bad, because we find that Yaakov was more successful by Yifrit Ish Moed. This marriage was so successful beyond. By you, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to build a generation. It's going to be Bekuyim by you, by Yifrit Ish Moed, even though. Now, this is the 5 things that he writes. I just want to tell you a very interesting thing. I wrote this in the order. I asked many good people about it. Said you can put it in the order. It's a very nice thing. In our generation, we have many, many letters that were revealed over time. A couple of years ago, maybe 10, Agudas Hidduch Chabad printed a book that they found in the Rebbe's house. The Igrois, the letters that the Rebbe received from the Frierdiker Rebbe, personal letters, like for Yom Tov, for birthdays. I want to share with you this one letter, it's mind-boggling. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes to Rebbe in the calendar, or this was, you know what year this was? Oh, Reish Pei Gimel. It's clearly, you can see it. And she writes to him that you should know when the first time officially the Rebbe met Rebbe Chaim Mushka was in 1923. Clearly in the English. Now I want to, all of you, good numbers, let's make a little cheshbon. 1923, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 20. How many years? 7 years. I can wait 7 years. You see how everything fits. Any more time? We just added this in the order. Now I'm just going to conclude. It's just mind-boggling thing that you have to have a voice on the Rebbe's father. Everyone's still alive, huh? What? Time. Now I'm going to share with you something mind-boggling, and I hope everyone will catch this point. I'm not sure most of you don't know this, but it's a mind-boggling thing. There was a man. I don't remember him. Perhaps some people here who remember him. There used to be a Yid who lived in Crown Heights. His name was Rabbi Gord. Rabbi Gord was a writer. He was the son of the famous Chasuna Gord. He interviewed Rebbe Chasuna in the early 1960s. He went to her house, apartment, and literally he asked a question, like a writer. He asked the questions about the Rebbe, and she revealed a lot of interesting stories. One interesting story she said was that the day of the Rebbe's Chasuna, Yudal of Kislev, the 14th of Kislev, 1929, Tafresh, she said, their husband, Rebbe Yitzchak, sat down by a table. The table had a tablecloth, and he wrote a telegram that should be sent over from the post office in your computer slot to Poland. Now, practically, let me tell you, I know and you know, telegrams are very expensive. And if you even look at the telegrams the Rebbe would send, 1 or 2 words, like 4 words, 5 words, because every letter would cost money. I want to tell you, I think this was the only telegram in history that had so many words. It had 101 words. This telegram had 101 words. And the Rebbe Chana said that as soon as the Rebbe's father started to write this telegram, he broke down crying. And she said when he finished writing it, the entire tablecloth was soaked with tears. And the Rebbe's uncle also, Reb Shmuel, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe and said, you know, your father I saw. He said, the deepest feelings I saw at that moment that a father has for a son, he said, he poured out in that telegram. Now let me tell you what happened. A few weeks later, it's incredible. This date is so like us, you know, those days it was one thing, but to us that date is very special. The wedding was without Kislev. A couple of weeks later, there was a letter written on Hey Teves. Yes, that day, Hey Teves, not the letter. The Rebbe's father writes to the Rebbe like this. Huh? Okay, sorry. The Rebbe's father writes. Oh, he gave me a little more time, so let's have a look. I want to tell you, I once heard, hey, you do Salah Mashkin, who do Salah Mashkin? So I want to tell you, I once heard the Rebbe was once my Fabregan before he became Rebbe, I think it was in Paris. He was sitting amongst Chassidim, and he saw that almost no one saying L'chaim. So the Rebbe turned to the guy who's in charge of giving everyone vodka, and the Rebbe told him that the Salah Mashkin, the guy who's in charge of giving vodka, has to know three things. Number one, everyone has to get it. Number two, every drop is precious. Don't always. And number three, he himself, he shouldn't forget say L'chaim. Anyway, L'chaim. Anyway, so yeah, you make sure everyone's at L'chaim. I hope you brought it up L'chaim. Anyway, let me tell you something very special about this telegram. You should know. So let me tell you something. So the Rebbe's uncle, Reb Shmuel, he wrote to the Rebbe. He said that your father poured his heart out in this letter. He cried so much when I saw him writing that telegram. You know, Rabbi Shapiro from Florida, he told me he heard from his grandfather, who was the Rebbe's teacher, or I would say better, the Rebbe's Chasuna, in Yekaterinoslav, when the Rebbe was a little bit young. He said he also heard from his grandfather that he remembered the telegram that the Rebbe's father wrote, and that day was 101 words. But he said, Rabbi Shapiro told me, he said, I don't think he understood what the reason of the 101 was. He said, it's so unusual. Who writes such an expense, you know, to send a telegram? So let me tell you what happened. Hey, Teves, the Rebbe's father, you can read it. It's printed. It's printed today. I'm telling you my own Chiddushim. The Rebbe's father writes to the Rebbe that I'm sending you a hetek. A hetek means I'm writing over a copy of the telegram that I wrote to you on the day of Chasuna. And I want Sheyeh Shomur Etzlach. I want you to guard it, keep it, watch it. It should be by you. You shouldn't just think it's a regular telegram. And then he says these words. You should know, I was medayik. Especially wrote that telegram with 101 words. This is what he writes. He doesn't say why. He just says, oh, that's why he said against. He wrote it, the Rebbe's father wrote it in Hebrew. When they sent it from Yekaterinoslav, the post office, to somewhere, a post office in Warsaw, it was translated like transliteration, you know, like say Baruch, you say B-O-R-U-C-H, whatever, you know. So it was translated, transliteration, so to say, in Russian words. That the Rebbe should get it. But the Rebbe's father wrote, I want you to have the words how I wrote in Hebrew. And he said, I'm writing it over to you, and you should have this. And he sent it to him on Hey Teves of Reish Beitas. We have, and I have it in the book now. We have, they found it in the Rebbe's father's house. They found the actual Ksavyan, the written, how the Rebbe's father wrote this special telegram. By the way, you should know this is the only letter or telegram that the Rebbe's father, Rabbi Yitzchok, signed his name Levi Yitzchak. He didn't sign his name. Usually write Levi Yitzchak, or he added some words. This is the only letter where he signs his name Levi Yitzchak. But if you count the words, only with Levi Yitzchak is it 101. If you would have said Levi Yitzchak, there would have been 102. So the only letter, you see how everything is so meduyik. Now, I just want to conclude with the words of the Rebbe's father. I showed this to Yale, other people. So the Rebbe's father didn't explain why he wrote 101, but I want to say something very interesting. If somebody goes through all the books, the story of the Rebbe's father, so I found 20 times, yes, 20 times, I'm finishing 2 minutes. Okay. What time? Oh, okay. I found 20 times, yeah, in the books, in the Torah that we have, that the Rebbe's father explains the difference between 100 and 101. I showed it to, I remember I showed it to Yale, other people, and I said, could this make sense if you read all these sources together? Why he wrote the telegram? So Yale told me, I remember he said, it's very good to put this in the order. So people would say, perhaps. So let me tell you 2 interesting things that the Rebbe's father brings. And this could be the board for tonight, because also we have to say something of learning. The Rebbe's father says like this. He brings down an Arizal. Arizal writes, Sefer Eitz Chaim, Shad HaZivugim Perikbo, or chapter of Shad HaZivugim. That there is a malach, yes, there is a bad malach in heaven. That malach is called by the name Mas, Mem Sama. How much is Mem Sama? 100. This malach is a bad malach. You know what his job is? You have good malachim and choil, and you have bad malachim. This malach is a good malach, is a bad malach. His job is, the Rizal writes, Shik Chasapay. He goes and whatever you learn, he wants you to forget what you learned. Because if you remember everything that you learn, you'll be so conscious of what you're learning, you'll never want to transgress. So he makes it you forget, and you're not so alert, and therefore he gets his way, that you should do things that you're not properly. So his job is called Shik Chasapay. So then the Rizal continues. He says this famous Gemara that we have, a Chagigah, of Testament base, which is also now the Rebbe explains the famous thing, the famous Perik Tezbov and Tanya. There is somebody who's a loya vodai, he doesn't really toil to serve Hashem, and there's someone who's a oivedelikim, someone who really works hard, above and beyond his nature. And the Rebbe explains that the nature was in those days to learn something 100. When you learn something 100 more, so the Rizal explains, Mas is 100. As long as you learn something 100, and that was the nature, the teva of that time, you could be under that, the influence of that evil malach. When you learn something 101, you go out of his realm, and he never, ever can have any influence. You'll never forget what you learned. You'll always remember it. Now I'll show you an unbelievable thing. Myra in the side group.
We have 2 chiyuvim, so one minor in the front and one minor in the back.
So many.
And
No. So 2 minutes, Myra will be after this board. No, because I'm finished. 2 minutes. Yeah, they have to hear this board. This is the board of time. Come. The Myra of the script. No. 2 minutes. So one of the things that the Rebbe's father writes, we all know there's nothing that's not hinted in the Torah. Everything, if you look good, is hinted in the Torah. So the Rebbe's father said, look over here, if you have the Gemara says, if you learn something 101, you call it oivet. You call it someone who really toils. That's what the Rebbe's father says in his Oris Tanya. Oivet Elikim, doesn't say Oivet Avaya. What's Elikim? Elikim means, how much does Elikim add up to? We all know. It adds up to Hateva, nature. So Oimed Elokim, you work, that means you toil above and beyond your nature, then you'll never ever forget what you learned. This malach is called what? Mas. As Rizal revealed, said the Rebbe's father, this entire Gemara of Chagiga, this entire Rizal in Eitz Chaim, and also about the Rebbe said Tanya is all hinted in a pasuk Chumash. And with this, the Rebbe's father says one more question. The Gemara gives an example over there. Moshe Meshuk Shel. Come on, all. An example the Gemara gives of a market of donkey wagon drivers. If you go a distance of 10 zuz, 10 parsa, that was a distance, no, that's 40 miles approximately, you're going to pay 1 zuz. If you go 11 parsa, one above the nature, you're going to pay 2 zuz. So the Gemara asks, it doesn't make sense, for 10 you charge me 1 zuz, and for 11 you charge me 2. Yeah, because once you go out of the realm of your nature, then you'll get, it's working, extra time. So you got to pay. So similar, the Gemara says, 100 to 100 to 1. Now, the Rebbe's father asks, why do you pick Chamor? You could have picked a wagon, a market of taxi drivers. You could have picked horses, donkeys. Donkeys says you could have picked horses or camels. Why do you pick donkeys? The Rebbe's father says everything is exact. It's all hinted in Chumash. And with that, I'm going to ask a quiz over here. Which Shevet do you know excelled from all the Shvatim for learning Torah? Yisachar, excellent. In Parshas Vayechi, which animal was Yisachar compared to? Yisachar Chamoyer. He was compared to a donkey. That's what the Gemara gives a marshal of Chamoyer. Then the Rebbe's father said, Yankee Rino blessed. He blessed Yisachar. He told the words, Vayehi lemas oivei. And he said, this is the hymn. He told him, Vayehi lemas, you're going to learn something 100 times, mas 100. But not only mas, you're going to do oived eleki. You're going to do up the 101 above your nature, and therefore you'll never be under this influence of this bad mother. And with this, I want to conclude. Another place the Rebbe's father says the word mas mem samach is also, you turn it around, samach mem. He is this Satan, the samach mem, who wants to give us a bad year. And with this, the Rebbe's father says a phenomenal thing. He writes in the letter to the Rebbe. How many kids did they blow on the base of Mikdash? They say, by the way, they only kept 1 day Rosh Hashanah, not 2. But how many kids did they blow? 100 by Rosh Hashanah. And then in Yom Kippur, how many did they blow? 1. Total, 101 kids. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, why 101? So the Rebbe's father said, because this mas, this Samach man, he wants to give us a bad year. He wants to be in the country. He wants to talk against us. And Hashem says, don't blow 101, you go out of his realm. And if that's good, you will all be blessed or something. I showed this to the girl. I said, perhaps this was the reason why the Rebbe's father, it's another 18 things I could go on and on. It's mind-boggling. And the Rebbe's father proves in Mishnah, Mishas, so many times the Gemara said that the differentiation of 100, 101, to tell you, as long as you go 100, you're under the limitations of nature. The moment you go 101, you go out of the realm of nature. You have a hashpah. You have a flow of heaven, which is beyond nature. And this is why the Rebbe's father, Levitz, wants to bless our Rebbe, David Chasuna. That Hashem should bless you. By Yifrit, Zaish, Moit, we all children over here, we're all the children to the Rebbe. The Rebbe has a tremendous mission to fulfill, and we are his partners. So all of us, when we go to the oil, we should ask the Rebbe, we want to be your partners. And through us, you should fulfill this mandate that we should be blessed with the Shalom Mesukah, with Aksiva Simon Toiva, we should all be blessed above and beyond. And after Myra, we're going to give out a beautiful koivet. Hope it's enough for everyone. It is the first, we talk about a lot. It's printed in English over here. beautiful things on the Rebbe and the Parsha will come.